The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council chamber shimmered with serene, artificial light, refracting into calming patterns across the assembled delegate. High Arbiter Veln, his amphibian skin glistening beneath ornate robes, surveyed the gathering with detached satisfaction from the central dais. Beside him, Commander Krell shifted, the plates of his carapaced reptilian bulk scraping faintly, eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. Only Ambassador Lyra, her avian features tense beneath delicate feathers, radiated unease, talons clicking softly on the polished floor. The proposed action, Lyra ventured, her voice a melodic counterpoint to the chamber's sterility, is disproportionate. Humanity's incursion into the Cradle Nebula, while unauthorized, stemmed from resource scarcity, not malice. Further dialogue. Dialogue is a privilege for species who comprehend galactic order, Veln interrupted, his voice a smooth, chilling current. Bioluminescent frills pulsed with calm authority. They ignored repeated warnings, Ambassador. Their primitive vessels squat like vermin in territory vital to the Council's security corridors. Their technology is a crude amalgamation of stolen concepts, their understanding of hyperspace negligible. They offer only chaos. He gestured towards the holographic star map hovering above, where blinking red icons marked human outposts. They force our hand. A surgical excision is required to restore harmony. Commander! Krell's deep rumble vibrated the air. The fleet stands ready, High Arbiter. Their orbital defenses are theoretical. Their ground shields, brittle constructs. We will scour their primary colony world and key outposts. A demonstration of consequence. His gaze, fixed on the human homeworld icon, Earth, held no empathy, only the cold calculus of eradication. Lyra opened her beak, then closed it. Protest was futile. The vote, a mere formality, echoed the predetermined verdict, annihilation sanctioned. The execution unfolded with terrifying efficiency on the Council's massive primary display. Distant sensor feeds relayed the ballet of destruction. Sleek Krell warships, dwarfing the blocky human vessels, unleashed torrents of coherent energy. Earth's fragile orbital platforms vaporized in silent blooms of incandescent gas. City shields, shimmering domes of light, flared brilliantly for nanoseconds before shattering like glass under the relentless barrage. Mushroom clouds, grotesque and silent from the void, bloomed across continents, Tokyo's neon sprawl consumed by fire, the ancient stones of Cairo reduced to molten slag, the verdant Amazon basin transformed into a charred wasteland. Billions of lives, snuffed out in clinical detachment. Veln watched, his frills maintaining their serene pulse. Observed the necessity. Disorder contained. Krell grunted approval, tracking kill counts, scrolling on a subsidiary feed. Lyra turned her head away, feathers ruffled in distress. The primary feed flickered, filled with static snow, then went dark. The expected silence of extinction. Operation complete, Krell declared, the finality thick in the air. The human infestation is terminated. Mopping operations commence in the nebula. Veln inclined his head. Order is restored. The cradle is secure. A wave of smug satisfaction, cold and absolute, settled over the chamber. Humanity was relegated to a footnote, a minor disruption efficiently resolved. The shriek of proximity alarms shattered the complacency like a physical blow. Lights plunged into emergency crimson, bathing the crystalline spires in blood-like hues. Panic erupted. Delegates scrambled, shrill cries echoing. Security holograms flickered erratically. Report. Veln demanded, frills flaring with alarm for the first time, his serenity cracking. Intruder vessel. Materialization inside perimeter gamma. No prior signature. No hyperspace trace. A technician stammered, voice raw with terror. The main display, moments ago dark, flickered back to life. But not with the clean void of space. It showed ruin. Jagged skeletons of shattered skyscrapers clawed at a smoke-choked sky. rubble-choked streets where bodies lay contorted, half-buried. The choking stench of ozone, burning polymers, and something organic and foul seemed to bleed through the screen. The oppressive silence was broken only by the moan of wind through desolation and the faint, horrifying sound of someone weeping nearby. The camera, shaky, handheld, panned upwards, revealing a figure silhouetted against the hellish glow of a burning city. Paris? New York? The identity of the corpse-strewn cityscape was secondary to the utter devastation it represented. The figure stepped forward, resolving into a woman. General Anya Rostova. Middle-aged, her face was a landscape of exhaustion etched deep with grime and dried blood. One eye was swollen shut. Her uniform, once crisp, hung torn and stained with soot and dark, ominous patches. She didn't stand on a pristine bridge, but amidst the shattered ferrocrete and twisted rebar of what had clearly been a command bunker. Her eyes, one bright and burning with an intensity that transcended the screen, locked onto the camera. Her voice, when it came, was a raw scrape, devoid of amplification, stripped bare of any pretense of diplomacy or even anger. It was the sound of bedrock fractured. "You attacked our home." The words landed in the council chamber like a singularity. The panicked noise ceased instantly, replaced by a vacuum of stunned disbelief. Veln recoiled as if physically struck, his frills draining of color, retracting tight against his skull. Krell froze, his predatory confidence replaced by utter shock, plates rattling with involuntary tension. Lyra let out a choked gasp, clapping her talons over her beak, eyes wide with dawning horror. Rostova didn't pause. The raw scrape continued, each syllable a hammer blow. "You glassed Mumbai. You vaporized Olympus Mons." Her gaze, that terrifyingly focused eye, seemed to pierce the screen, finding each council member. "You murdered billions." The silence stretched, thick with the unspeakable weight of her accusation and the devastation behind her. She took a shallow, shuddering breath. "You have 7 rotations." The final words dropped like stones into the silent void. "Stand down your fleet. Surrender High Arbiter Veln and Commander Krell for trial under human law." A flicker of something colder than space itself passed through her visible eye. "Fail, and we will show you what happens when you break something that was already broken." The feed cut. The ship vanished from sensors. The crimson emergency lights still pulsed, illuminating faces frozen in expressions of primal fear. Veln trembled, his detached authority obliterated. Krell roared, a sound of pure, bewildered fury. Amidst the rising chaos, Lyra's whisper cut through, sharp with a terrifying realization. What did she mean? Already broken? The chamber dissolved into pandemonium, the foundation of their certainty irrevocably shattered. The silence of extinction had been replaced by the deafening roar of consequences, and the chilling unknown of what humanity, broken once, had become. The council chamber remained steeped in the acrid aftertaste of terror long after the crimson lights faded. High Arbiter Veln's frills lay flat and pallid against his skull, his usual serenity replaced by a tremor he couldn't suppress. Commander Krell, however, erupted. His roar of primal fury shook the crystalline fixtures. "Impossible! A trick! Some scavenged stealth tech." He slammed a massive fist onto the console, cracking the interface. "I will tear that ship apart bolt by bolt. Hunt them down." Veln's voice, when it finally emerged, was thin, reedy, stripped of its commanding resonance. "Lock down all sectors. Full sensor sweep." "Explain how." Fleet admirals, faces ashen on subsidiary feeds, stammered reports of sensor ghosts, negative energy readings, and defenses bypassed as if they didn't exist. No hyperspace signatures, no thermal blooms consistent with known drives. The vengeance had pierced their invincibility like a needle through smoke. Krell seized the narrative. "Their pitiful remnants cower in the Cradle Nebula. We scorch it clean. Every asteroid, every dust cloud." Veln, desperate to reclaim control, to erase the image of Rostova standing amidst desolation, nodded jerkily. Do it. Find that ship. Annihilate it. Leave nothing human breathing. The order, once delivered with cold certainty, now rang hollow, desperate. Krell's finest hunters, sleek predators of the void, plunged into the swirling ochre and violet gases of the Cradle Nebula. They scanned with overlapping sensor nets, deployed probe swarms, and patrolled with predatory vigilance. The Vengeance toyed with them. It manifested like a jagged sensor ghost near mining outpost Theta 7, broadcasting Rostova's grainy ultimatum on every frequency before dissolving into the nebula static. It flickered at the nebula's turbulent edge, just beyond weapons range of a patrol flotilla, then vanished, not by jumping, but by seemingly unraveling space itself, leaving behind a brief, unsettling spatial hemorrhage detected only by a panicked junior sensor tech. Reports filtered back, not of battles, but of disappearances. The destroyer Talons of Justice ceased transmission near a dense ionic cloud. Scouts sent to investigate found nothing. No debris, no energy residue, just empty void. Then the frigate Swift Retribution vanished near a protostellar nursery. Panic, carefully contained but corrosive, began seeping through Krell's command channels. His broadcasts grew increasingly unhinged, demanding results, threatening subordinate. Amidst the militaristic frenzy, Ambassador Lyra moved like a shadow through the Council's vast archives. Rostova's words, already broken, echoed in her mind, a dissonant counterpoint to the official history. She bypassed security protocols meant for lowly archivists, her avian mind processing data with swift precision. She found fragments, ancient, half-erased logs from early exploration probes near Sol, flagged apocryphal mythological reference. Mentions of Sol system cataclysm, great filter event, casualty estimates in the tens of billions predating human starflight by centuries. Classified, dismissed as primitive superstition. Lyra felt a chill deeper than space. What if it wasn't myth? What horrors had forged the survivors who built a ship that defied physics and delivered vengeance from a graveyard? She confronted Veln in his suddenly austere private chamber. High Arbiter, the Great Filter. Rostova wasn't just speaking metaphorically. The archives. Sol suffered an extinction-level event before they achieved FTL. We didn't attack a thriving civilization. We attacked survivors. Veln stared at her, his amphibian eyes wide with dawning, horrific comprehension, quickly buried under layers of denial. Preposterous. Distractions. Krell will crush them. Their tricks won't save them. Krell, driven by humiliation and calcified pride, took the bait. A tantalizing, faint sensor echo pulsed deep within the nebula's heart, in Sector Umbra, a region of such intense ionic interference and gravitational lensing that navigation was notoriously treacherous. Convinced it was the Vengeance hiding, Krell led his flagship, the dreadnought Imperator, and a full battle group of his most powerful vessels into the swirling maelstrom. "No more games, vermin!" he broadcast into the static. "I come for you." The Imperator pierced the dense, charged nebula cloud, its sensors straining, momentarily blinded. Then, space convulsed. It wasn't a decloaking. Dozens of angular, scarred vessels, smaller cousins to the Vengeance, materialized from the nebula gas itself. They coalesced out of the swirling colors, silent and impossibly fast, surrounding Krell's fleet not in open void, but within the storm's embrace. Standard targeting systems screamed errors, unable to lock onto ships seemingly phased halfway into reality. The human ships didn't fire beams or missiles. They deployed devices that warped gravity, creating localized singularities that swallowed Krell's point defense fire. They projected fields that induced crippling spatial shear, slicing through shields like they weren't there. Then came the projectiles, dark, streamlined shapes that passed through energy barriers as if they were holograms. One impacted the Imperator's ventral hull. Not an explosion. A localized gravity inversion. Artificial gravity plates reversed polarity instantly. Crewmen, consoles, bulkheads, anything not bolted down, slammed upwards with bone-shattering force. Chaos erupted. Klaxons wailed amidst screams as bodies tumbled through inverted corridors. Krell, strapped into his command throne, bellowed orders lost in the pandemonium, watching his bridge crew become a tangle of limbs against the ceiling. A familiar, grainy feed replaced the tactical display on his main viewer. General Rostova stood on the Vengeance-S bridge, not amidst ruins, but surrounded by functional, if brutally utilitarian, consoles. Her single visible eye held no triumph, only cold, exhausted finality. You were warned, Commander Krell. Stand down. Your fleet is forfeit. Order surrender, or witness their annihilation point by pointless point. Behind her, displays showed the rest of his battle group similarly crippled, caught in webs of exotic energies, helpless. Defeated, broken not by firepower but by the terrifyingly unfamiliar, Krell choked out the surrender order. The feed cut. Moments later, a new transmission flooded the council chamber. It showed Krell, stripped of his insignia, held between two grim-faced human marines in battered armor aboard what was unmistakably the Vengeance-S Stark brig. Rostova's voice, flat and absolute, accompanied the image. One rotation remains, High Arbiter Veln. Your turn. Come alone to these coordinates. Come and see what you truly awakened. The coordinates glowed in the nebula's heart. Veln sank into his chair, the last vestiges of authority draining away, replaced by pure, undiluted dread. Lyra stared at the captured reptilian commander, then at the nebula on the star map, whispering the question now haunting the entire galaxy. What truly survived the breaking? The hunt was over. Judgment was coming. The coordinates delivered by Rostova pulsed in the heart of the Cradle Nebula like a malignant star. High Arbiter Veln, stripped of his ceremonial robes and escorted only by a skeleton crew radiating palpable fear, traveled through the swirling ochre and violet gases. His flagship, once a symbol of inviolable authority, felt like a coffin. Every sensor anomaly, every ripple in the nebula's luminous currents, made his amphibian skin crawl. He saw Krell's captured image constantly in his mind, the reptilian commander reduced to shackled silence. The Vengeance materialized ahead, not as a ghost this time, but a brutal, angular certainty against the nebula's chaos. It dwarfed his vessel, radiating silent menace. No fanfare greeted him. A single, scarred docking tube extended. Human marines in battered, functional armor, their faces hidden behind opaque visors, their movements economical and lethal, escorted him through sterile, echoing corridors. The air tasted of ozone, recycled metal, and something else, a faint, acrid tang of ancient radiation, perhaps, or simply the cold aura of implacable purpose. He was brought not to a cell, but to a vast, dimly lit observation deck. General Anya Rostova stood silhouetted against a colossal viewport currently opaqued. She turned. The exhaustion etched into her face seemed deeper, the grief a permanent shadow, but her single visible eye burned with a cold, unyielding light. Veln's frills clamped tight against his skull, his natural pallor turning sickly gray. He tried to summon indignation, authority, anything. Only a dry croak emerged. Silence. Rostova rasped, her voice the scrape of stone on stone. You demanded to know our place. You called us vermin. Now you witness. She gestured sharply. The viewport depolarized. Veln expected stars, nebula, perhaps the wreckage of Krell's fleet. He did not expect time. The viewport became a window onto hell. Not the recent hell they had wrought, but a deeper, older abyss. Earth. But not the blue-green gem they had bombarded. This was a corpse world. Scorched continents bled rust-red into poisoned, sludge-gray oceans. Atmosphere thinned to a lethal haze, swirling over landscapes scoured down to bedrock and fused glass. Jagged remnants of cities clawed at a sickly sky, not shattered by orbital fire, but melted, twisted into impossible, tortured shapes by unimaginable heat. Calcified bones, millions upon millions, lay tumbled in vast ossuary plains. The sheer, ancient scale of the desolation was paralyzing. This wasn't war. This was extinction. Rostova's voice, devoid of inflection yet vibrating with tectonic fury, narrated the horror unfolding in fragments across the screen. Centuries before we touched the stars. The great filter. Our doing. Brief, searing flashes. Cities consumed by gray goo that dissolved flesh and stone alike. Skies darkened by swarms of hunter-killer drones turning on their creators. Continents ripped open by geoengineered cataclysms gone rogue. A final, blinding pulse from the sun itself scorching the hemisphere. Billions screaming into silent ash. We broke our own world. Shattered it. Images shifted. Ragged survivors in deep, rad-scarred bunkers, fighting not aliens, but monstrous, radiation-twisted remnants of their own fauna and rogue terraforming engines. Rebuilding technology from irradiated scrap piles, manuals burned for warmth, knowledge preserved in blood-stained notebook. Developing the gravity drives to escape the dying rock, the nebula cloaking tech to hide from nothing but the void's indifference, the spatial weapons born from needing to crack planetary cores for resources or deflect stellar debris. Survival forged in the crucible of their own hubris. Veln staggered, clutching a railing. His frog throat convulsed, bile rising. He saw not a defeated species, but phoenixes risen from ashes so profound they defied comprehension. Rostova stepped closer, her presence a physical weight. You see now, Arbiter? The title dripped acid. You didn't attack a homeworld. You attacked a mass grave. You bombarded our cenotaph. You shattered the one fragile thing we clawed back from absolute oblivion. Her visible eye locked onto his, stripping away every layer of bureaucratic detachment, every assumption of superiority. That is why your fleets failed. That is why your defenses are smoke. We survived that. A ghost of something terrible flickered in her gaze, the memory of absolute loss. You? You are merely inconvenient. The word hung in the air, colder than the void outside. Veln crumpled, not just physically, but existentially. His worldview, his authority, his species' perceived supremacy, all reduced to dust finer than that coating the dead earth on the screen. He wept thin, reedy sobs of utter desolation. He finally understood the monstrous sacrilege he had sanctioned. Rostova watched his breakdown without pity. Commander Krell will face human justice. For war crimes. For the dead you added to our mountains. She turned back to the viewport, the horrific past replaced by the swirling, living nebula. You. She gestured dismissively at the broken amphibian. Are our message. Return to your precious council. Show them this truth. Tell them humanity's verdict. We are not subject. We are not petitioners. We are survivors. The Cradle Nebula is ours. Our graves, our monument, our shield. She looked directly into the recording device she knew was active. Cross us again, and we will remind the galaxy why the void learned to fear the broken things that refuse to die. Now, get off my ship. The Marines hauled the insensate Veln away. Rostova stood alone before the nebula, the weight of millennia pressing down. On the viewscreen, a final image flickered. Earth, present day. Survivors, faces smudged with soot but eyes fierce, moved rubble from a shattered plaza. A child, solemn beyond years, carefully planted a single, resilient flower in the cracked, irradiated soil. Rostova touched a console, opening a private channel to the surface. It's done, she murmured, her voice finally cracking with the strain, the grief momentarily overwhelming the fury. A face, aged and weary but resolute, appeared, perhaps a governor, perhaps just another survivor. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes of shared loss and terrible resolve. No words were needed. She cut the feed. In the Galactic Council chamber, chaos reigned. The transmission of Earth's past apocalypse and Veln's broken return had ignited pandemonium. Ambassador Lyra stared at the nebula on the star map, the swirling colors now seeming to pulse with a terrifying, ancient power. The question wasn't if humanity would endure. It was what terrifying guardians the galaxy had unwittingly forged from its own ashes. Rostova turned from the viewport, her shoulders straightening infinitesimally. The watch continued. The nebula, vast and enigmatic, swirled on, hiding its scars and its sentinels. Let them be shocked. Humanity remembered. The nebula's embrace felt less like sanctuary and more like a shroud aboard the Vengeance. General Anya Rostova stood before the reinforced viewport, the swirling ochre and violet gases reflecting dully in her single visible eye. The weight of Veln's shattered comprehension, the horrific vistas of Earth's ancient apocalypse she'd forced him to witness, it hadn't brought solace, only a deeper, bone-weary ache. Justice demanded its next due. "Bring him," she rasped, the sound echoing in the cavernous, utilitarian bridge. The command was for Commander Krell. The reptilian commander was hauled in, no longer the strutting conqueror. Shackles bound his massive forelimbs. His carapace bore fresh scorch marks from the nebula battle, and one eye was swollen shut. Defiance still smoldered in his remaining eye, but it was banked by the raw, humiliating reality of his capture and the unnerving silence of his captors. He scanned the bridge, not gleaming council efficiency, but scarred metal, exposed conduits, interfaces designed for brutal function over form. Humans worked with quiet, terrifying efficiency, their gazes flicking towards him not with fear, but with a cold, assessing hatred that felt familiar. Like predators recognizing kin. "Krell of the Saurian Compact," Rostova stated, turning slowly. Her voice wasn't the raw scrape of the ultimatum. It was glacier ice, honed sharp. "You stand accused before the survivors of Earth and her colonies. Crimes against sentience. Unprovoked aggression. The bombardment of civilian population centers. New Mumbai. Olympus Mons. The deliberate destruction of the Arcadia Orbital Hospital Complex. Billions murdered under your direct command." She listed them without inflection, each name a hammer blow against the silence. "How do you answer?" Krell strained against his restraints, a guttural hiss escaping his fanged maw. "Answer? To vermin? You skulk in gas clouds. You attack like thieves. You have no right. We brought order. Your species was a blight." Silence. Rostova's single word cracked like a whip, carrying an authority forged in literal fire. Krell flinched, the instinctive reaction of prey before something infinitely more dangerous. "Your order was genocide. Your justification, arrogance. We are not here to debate your council's failed ethics. We are here to pass sentence according to human law. The law written in the ashes of our first home, tempered in the long dark that followed." She gestured, and a stark holographic display flickered to life beside her, not the ancient horrors, but the fresh wounds. The molten crater where Mumbai once thrived, the twisted wreckage of the hospital complex tumbling through void, sensor logs showing Krell's flagship firing on fleeing civilian transports. "Evidence is incontrovertible. Your guilt is absolute." Krell's defiance wavered, replaced by a dawning, chilling realization. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't politics. This was a reckoning as primal and inevitable as gravity. What do you want?" he snarled, the bravado thin. "Accountability," Rostova stated simply. "Humanity does not torture. We do not inflict suffering for spectacle. But we remember. And we demand justice for the taken." She paused, her gaze locking onto his. "Your options are to face immediate execution, or..." A new image appeared, a desolate, wind-swept plain on a reclaimed section of Earth's surface, dominated by row upon row of stark, simple markers stretching to the horizon. "You spend the remainder of your natural life on Earth. As a monument. A custodian of the dead you helped create. Tending the graves of those you murdered. Living reminder of the cost of arrogance. Choose." The bridge held its breath. Krell stared at the endless field of graves, then back at the images of his own atrocities. Execution was clean, warrior's death. But that eternal servitude amidst the ghosts of his victims, on the broken world he'd helped ravage? It was a punishment conceived in the depths of survivor's guilt, a fate worse than oblivion for a being whose culture revered martial glory. His massive frame seemed to shrink. The fire in his eye guttered, replaced by a hollow terror. "The graves," he choked out. "Until your last breath," Rostova confirmed, her voice devoid of mercy. "Your presence will be the monument to your crime. Choose now." A tremor ran through Krell, a visceral revulsion. He looked at the humans surrounding him, their faces impassive, their eyes holding the cold void of absolute conviction. He saw no path to victory, no leverage, only the crushing weight of their endured history pressing down. His shoulders slumped, the proud commander finally broken not by force, but by the unbearable weight of consequence. "The graves," he whispered, the words tasting like ash. Rostova gave a curt nod. "So be it." She turned away, dismissing him as the Marines moved to secure him. Her gaze returned to the nebula. Justice, it seemed, could be a slow, grinding stone. Weeks later, Ambassador Lyra watched the official, heavily redacted transmission from the newly declared Human Protectorate Zone. It showed a small, secured compound on the edge of the vast memorial plain. A single, hulking reptilian figure, stripped of insignia, moved with stiff, deliberate slowness between the endless rows of markers, clearing infinitesimal weeds, adjusting tiny stones placed by mourners. No guards were visible, but the utter isolation, the crushing weight of the silent, numbered dead, was imprisonment enough. The caption was stark: Commander Krell, Custodian of the Fallen. Sentence: Life. In the fractured Galactic Council, the image ignited fresh turmoil. Some delegates raged against human audacity. Others whispered in fearful awe. Lyra, however, saw beyond the punishment. She saw the terrifying clarity of humanity's response. They hadn't conquered. They hadn't demanded tribute. They had carved out their space, enforced their justice with terrifying efficiency born of ancient pain, and declared their borders with the graves of their dead as markers. Veln, a broken husk relegated to a minor advisory role, could only stare blankly. Lyra accessed a newly unsealed, fragmentary data packet, human records of the Great Filter, voluntarily shared. She saw the scorched earth, the desperate bunkers, the slow, agonizing climb back. It wasn't just history, it was a warning etched in planetary scars. Humanity hadn't just survived their apocalypse, it had been forged by it. Their resilience was their shield, their memory their unbreakable law. On Earth, Rostova walked the perimeter of the new Mumbai crater, now a deep, glassy scar slowly being reclaimed by hardy, genetically engineered moss. Below, in the newly tended memorial plain, Krell's distant figure was a speck against the enormity of loss. A young aide approached, holding a data slate. "General? The first harvest from the series hydroponic sectors is en route, and initial reports from the Proxima survey team. They found viable asteroid belts in the Goldilocks zone. Resources, ma'am." Rostova took the slate. Her